got cut off there in the last video. So I just have two last problems. We'll continue with the notes for Module 1, Lesson 4. So the next one we have is square root of 3 plus 5 and 3 plus square root of 5. And so this one requires just a little bit more of a thought process. We could branch both of these out, but really they're going to be really close to each other. I know square root of 3 is going to be a little bit under 2 and square root of 5 is going to be a little bit above 2 based on they're both really close to square root of 4. So they're really probably just decimal points away from each other, but I know automatically that 5 is much bigger than 3. And so that's going to make all the difference. So since I can tell that 5 is so much bigger than 3, and these two are so close to one another, I'm going to automatically know that this side is going to be greater. I mean, I could, earlier when I did my notes, earlier when I first planned this lesson, I did put it all out like this. But it really wasn't all that helpful. I guess this is a lot of work to do. If I really think about it, I could just say that I know square root of 3 and square root of 5 are really close together. Probably only like 0.5 or not even apart. Okay, very close together. But since 5 is much greater than 3, I know that square root of 3 plus 5 is going to be greater than 3 plus square root of 5. Okay. And so it's just kind of using that reasoning process. I mean, again, you could do this whole process for both of them. But again, that's going to take you a while. I mean, I got that it was between 1.5 and 2 plus the 5. So this side's between 6 and 6.5. And this side over here is between 5 and 5.5. I could do that, and that would totally be valid. But if you can reasonably explain it, it might be a little bit easier. Okay. And then finally, we have our last problem here. We have the square root of 13 plus 5, and then the square root of 5 plus 8. I could kind of use the same reasoning as this one, knowing that 8 is quite a bit bigger than 5. But I probably want to show my work for this one a little bit more if I can. Okay, so I'm going to look over here, and I'm going to do the two branches for the square root of 13. Okay, so get me some more good practice. I know that this is between the square root of 9. This is between the square root of 16, which tells me it's between 3 and 4. If I look, it's going to be closer. Let's see, it's 4 away to 9 is 4 away to 13, and 13 to 16 is 3. So it's just a little bit closer to the radical 16, which is closer to 4. So I know that this is between 3.5 and 4. Let's see, between 3.5 and 4. But then we have to remember to add in the 5. So I'm going to add 5, make sure I line up correctly the place value. So this one is between, I'm just abbreviating between is BET, 8.5 and 9. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to look, and same idea, branch it out. I know it's between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9, but it's obviously much closer to the square root of 4. Let's see, it's 4 away, so it's going to be closer over here. So it's going to be between 2 and 3, but more specifically, since it's closer to square root of 4, it's going to be close between 2 and 2.5. So I have the sides between 2 and 2.5. But I have to add the 8 in. So I'm going to add 8. And so my final answer is between 10 and 10.5. And so since this is between 8.5 and 9 over here, and this is between 10 and 10.5, I know that this side is greater than this, or rather that this side is less than this side. Okay. And that would be the end of our notes today. The one other thing that you'd want to do is if you do have your composition notebook, we really want to get into the habit of writing specifically the rules for approximating square roots. So if I look here, okay, let me grab mine right here. I'm going to write with you guys. I'm missing a few pages, but okay. So I'm going to title the top of my page here, as 1.4, and this is steps for approximating square roots. All right. And these steps you're going to want to remember the best you can because they will come back. So we know that this is steps for approximating square roots. Okay, so step 1, where we want to identify the two perfect squares that the number falls between. 2. Sorry, I'm trying to write as fast as I can here. Okay, so that would be like when we identify it's between the square root of 9 and the square root of 16 or whatever it may be. For step 2, I determine the distance. Determine the distance between the number to each perfect square. So really the reason I'm doing that is to figure out which one it's closer to. And that's kind of like when we wrote that number above the line, we were like, oh, it's 4 away or whatever it might be. Okay. Step 3, we decide which perfect square it's closer to. I always like to circle it. And then finally, we plot it on the number line. And then, of course, we have to write our answer as in actual words. So step 5 would just be to write answer. Oh my gosh, I can't spell apparently. Write answer as between blank and blank. So between the nearest 0.5. Okay. So I'll zoom out a little bit because I know I went really fast so that you can always pause it too. But those would be our steps that we would use for approximating square roots. And that's good to have in your notebook in case you forget as time goes on. I hope you guys are doing a little bit better with the lesson. If you have any questions, make sure you guys are coming in for morning math help, or on Tuesday is our first after school math help. So have a nice weekend.